Okay, so there's a couple things that I want to note. In the hour that it took me to get from Albuquerque to Santa Fe, these are the things that they're going to have done. They'll have contacted someone that works here at the Resident Inn Marriott. Could have been the guy at the front desk, could be somebody else. Just one employee is all they need. And what they're going to do in the time period that it took me to get from here to there is put surveillance inside. I'm guessing it would be in anything that has a light that presumably would be a normal place to have a light. Now, they usually put it in these. Usually. Um, there was another one of these that had the light on. Let's see. There you go. These things are provable. What I'm going through is provable. All I'd need is someone to come in here and find this shit. That's it. And maybe the alarm clock, because that is actually a half an hour off. At least it was. Yep, still is about half an hour off. I'm guessing when they, like that, is the amount of time it was until I got here was when they were in the room. So about 20 minutes before I got here. They'll have checked out the attic space, whether this is the only attic entrance, which would make sense that this would be the only attic entrance to the attic space above this unit. I would guess that there wouldn't be another one, but I could be wrong. The things that I would check, things that are provable, easily proved, is you find out, because when I called, which they're not going to be able to know that I called until the moment I called, there were a few rooms available. In the hour it took me to get here, hour or so, hour and 20 minutes, whatever, suddenly there were no other rooms available. And he was very confident when I called that I would have no problem because there's so many rooms available, a few rooms, that no one else was going to check in at 1 o'clock in the morning. Because, again, most people plan ahead. And I'm guessing it's not their average for people to show up at 1 o'clock in the morning with no other plans of anywhere else to stay. But yet, somehow, rooms got rented between the time I called and the time I showed up. That would be provable. I think they handpicked this room out of the ones that were still available. And they picked this because of the entrance from the attic. So she can come down here after I'm unconscious. She can open that door and let people in, and that's how they've gotten around the card, because the card should read how many times that's opened and by what card opened it, blah, blah, blah. Some of them have that. I don't know if all of them do. But that's how they would get around that, because she just has to open the door. And they don't have a recording of how many times the door gets opened. They only have a recording of how many times the key actually opens it. At least they did at that one place I stayed. And that's when I knew she was already in the room. There's a few places she could hide, but nowhere I can't find her. So she has to be up there. Because I don't think that they always can get past the double locks. Sometimes they can, sometimes they can't. But this room was handpicked for me by them to stay in. So these are things that could be provable. You could find out how many rooms were available at 12:30 last night, and you could find out who rented the other rooms. I think that they probably didn't get as many rooms as they would have liked to. They weren't able to handpick the location either. Because they would normally want to be surrounding me and not have other people. But I'm guessing, like, the person staying right over here, I think I saw them, and it was a couple, and they were, like, freaked out by the dogs barking. So I'm guessing they're not involved because they wouldn't have responded that way to the dogs. The shoes were already out there when I got here last night. And it was a woman that showed up with a bag, and the guy must have already been here. But I'm guessing, see, that's not their ideal. Their ideal is to have anybody in the immediate vicinity be them. And because everything's been so packed, they can't do that. So this isn't an ideal situation for them. But what they did what they would be able to do, which is get into the room before I got here, pick the room that I would be in. Out of the rooms that were available, they would pick the one that would be best suited for them. And then they rented the other rooms. And all the police would have to do is say, show me, who rented what, blah, 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 blah. And are all the rooms empty, like they said? I mean, all the rooms filled, like they said. Is that really true? Because that's something that they would say to make sure that at some point I don't say, I want to change rooms. Because I've done that, and said, there's something in the room. So, anyways, that would be something that could easily be checked out. I mean, the feds could get into their computer without even permission and check that out for themselves. I'm guessing. I don't know. See, I'm not really a tech person, but I'm guessing that that's possible. But one thing I do know is that they can get people that work at these places. They may even be able to get higher up people, but people like this is owned by the Marriott. That is a national corporation. The Resident Inn, Marriott, people who own this, the top people, would be fucking horrified if they knew that right now a customer of theirs was sitting in one of their rooms being gassed with the intention of being later on gang raped, sodomized, and tortured by people who traffic drugs and women and children. They'd be fucking horrified. Because, why? Take a wild guess. Because if they were to get caught doing that, I could sue the Marriott, which have very deep pockets. And I would have, despite the fact that there's syndicate and all that, I would probably have my choice of lawyers who to pick, because that's a gold mine, And in every single hotel I've stayed at, like the Hyatt in Boise, Idaho, are you kidding me? 3 fucking people that commandeered that. The guy that when I first got there that used to live in Maui for 12 years, that whole thing, like when you always take a step back and you look back on the conversation, and I'm sure every person has had this experience, then you suddenly are like, what the fuck was I thinking? Like I didn't see that, or I didn't, it was 2:30 in the fucking morning, but the fact that he took 45 minutes to check me in, because I literally decided in 5 minutes that I was going to go to that hotel, so they needed that time. And usually at 2:30 in the morning when you're checking in, they're expedient. They know that you're exhausted. They know that, it's late, that, you're paying for a room that you're going to be checking out in supposedly in 3 hours. 8 hours. They're not fucking around like that, because you're paying for an entire night when you're really literally getting half a day, not even that. So all of that in retrospect, him wanting to sign me up for something, having to make multiple phone calls, it just didn't make sense. It just really, the whole thing was a setup. They were in that room, and then the fact when I came back the next afternoon, early evening, after spending the entire day at the vet because Vita's nose was bleeding because one of those things flying in the air shot up into her fucking nose, and immediately it started bleeding. And in fact, like, disintegrated the skin, because when you looked up in there, it was white and pink instead of like the color of her nose, which the vet said, oh, well, some dogs' noses are like that, blah, blah, blah. But they don't change then after 24 hours. She's turning the refrigerator on. She doesn't like how awake I am right now. She doesn't like me making these videos. She wants to get this raping thing started. So, anyhow, I came back at 6, and then they said that I was still checked into that room. And I was like, that I never checked out. And I'm like, how is that possible? I came down, the checkout was at noon. I came down at like 12:05. I was already out. I had been in the vehicle loading stuff and going back to drop off my key. Dropped off my key and the little disinfecting thing, but purposely gave my card that had my room number on it to the lady behind the thing. That's checking out. So even if what they said was, oh, well, you know, he gave you that because of what time you checked in and blah, blah. He never said that to me. He never said that I was going to have another night to stay there. Like, they don't ever do that. You understand, anybody that stays in hotels, how much they charge and how they're like, I mean, pet fees, blah, 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 blah. There has never been oh, look, a night for free. No. So what was happening is while I was sitting in the parking lot in my broken down ass RV with no heat, they were in that room hanging out all day long on my dime. And he set that up. The guy working at the Marriott when I checked in on that night, that was a former resident of Maui for 12 years. That's what he told me. And even the story of him going on and talking about Utah and, I mean, Idaho and blah, I mean, all of it, just stretching out the time, you know? And, you know, I was so out of it and so tired. I'd been driving for, 16 hours that day, you know? My animal is sitting and waiting in a freezing vehicle till he checks us in, and it took 45 minutes. 45 minutes to check us in. That gave them all that time, because as soon as we got in, all that shit was right on us right away. Right away. And then that lady on the second night, when she said, oh, you're still checked in, she goes, so I don't have to pay, which is weird as fuck. She goes, well, I assume that you want to go to a different room. I have a different room for you. You want to be on a higher floor? It's like she read my mind that I would want to be on a higher floor, that I would want to change rooms. And then I'm like, oh, well, because it seemed weird again that first of all you're giving me a free night, and then now you're even going to have me stay in another room. That means you have to do 2 cleanings. They don't ever do that either. They charge for that every time. That was weird. And I said, well, and she's like, well, I mean, you wouldn't, you know, this one's not clean. And I'm thinking, not clean? Aren't I the last one to be in there? Why would I have to have it cleaned when I'm the only one that was in there? Oh, because I wasn't the only one in there, because they were still in there. That's why. Because that room wasn't cleaned from their shit, because they were still in that motherfucking room. They hadn't cleaned it yet. So she was involved. She knew. She had to have known, in retrospect, right? I mean, come on now, right? And then I'm there that night, and at some point, it's so intense and horrible and awful. I go out at like midnight. I take my dogs out to go to the bathroom, and I see a group of guys out there, which, I mean, it was really quiet in Boise, Idaho at midnight, like very, very quiet. So, and I think with COVID and everything, things aren't, you know, necessarily open. I didn't see anything open around that area at that time. But yet I saw 4 guys get into an SUV. And I just, my gut feeling again, ding, went off. They're waiting to rape me. And you can say I'm crazy, I don't care. I can feel, you know, you can feel energy. You can feel people. Like, that's all real. It's actually scientific, everything. You know, energy is scientific. We're made up of energy. So, I just felt something wrong, off. You know, they kept looking over at me, and, you know, they were far enough away that I couldn't really see, but I could see that they were looking in my direction, and it was just odd, you know? Odd feeling. Anyhow, so there was a black dude. So it was the first guy was from Maui, the second was a haole lady, a white lady, and the third was a black guy. And I went back in, and I said I wanted to change rooms. And he said, well, they might have to charge you a cleaning fee. And I was like, I don't care. And I'm like, I think I want to do a ground floor. They already had the room picked out. They already had the room picked out. And that I was brutally sodomized and raped in that room and tortured. Brutally. That was a ripping my asshole open session. And the room that he put me in was a very, like, hidden, like, in the corner kind of situation. right by the door, leading to the outside. A room right across from me was open all night long. All night long, the door was open. Not wide open, but left open, so that anyone could come in and out of it. It was right by the stairwell. I didn't like the location, but by then I was so tired and I just wanted to go to sleep. All the gas in my system. And I went in and I was gassed. Now, I know how this sounds. And even in my own head, that's why when it's happening, when I'm getting the new room, or when I'm talking to the lady, or when I'm talking to the guy, it's hard. But when you look back on it, you're like, that doesn't make any sense, you know? So, right now, I have a crazy bitch in the fucking attic at the Resident Inn Marriott. And, this has become so normalized for me that, I try to think about what would a normal person do right now that's never had this experience before. If they were hearing noises up above them and having things like irritating their skin, breathing in and feeling like a burning sensation in their nose, like what would they do? Watching their dog's eyes, feeling their eyes get like just coated with shit, and watching their dog's eyes get blurry and glassy and red, and what would you do? It really puts you in a position of like, who do you say anything to? And, does the person working the night shift know tonight how many people that work at the Resident Inn Marriott? And that's another thing, they had to have called there because it wasn't something that was planned ahead. So they either called on somebody's phone that works here, and that would be on a record that the feds could find, or they actually called the Resident Inn Marriott, which is probably what they did first, I would guess, to see, and they would find out who was working tonight. They can find these things out so fast because they've got their tentacles everywhere. And people don't realize that. Like, people don't understand how networked they are already, and how this has increased their network and their ability to do it and their realization of how they can do it. Like, it's just practice for them. They can see how, oh wow, I can just pick up the phone and call this and I can get this set up in how many minutes? You think you live in the United States where you have rights that they don't have in Mexico. You think that you're a woman that lives in the United States and you have a right not to be raped and sodomized and tortured anywhere you go. Because in a lot of countries, they don't live with those rights. We don't either. And this may be just happening to me right now. Who knows? Maybe not. But it is happening to me. And that means that it can happen to you. Literally. They're getting all like pissed off. So, anyhow, they're making it really intense in here. I can tell by the pain. All the aching thing is starting to ache and ache and ache. And that means that it's in my system. That, and I would guess that if anybody had ever studied what I think to be anesthesia and whatever drug they've maybe mixed with it or whatever, that if you inhale it, and you're supposed to be asleep already. I'm supposed to be knocked out. But if I'm awake because of the caffeine in my system, like I have chest pain right now, and everything starts to ache. Like, despite the fact that it's supposed to be a painkiller, and I think that it is in general, I think when you are inhaling a substance that is supposed to make you unconscious, and you don't go unconscious, then that affects your body, So, anyways, I know what they want to do tonight, what they want to do every single night, and I'm sure, they're figuring that out, and they have their people here on the property in specific locations. There was a vehicle outside that clearly someone was in there because I saw smoke, like someone smoking something coming from the vehicle. And when I walked by it, just when I took Miho out, there was a big thing of alcohol, empty bottle of like one you would buy at a drugstore, like a big bottle of vodka or a big bottle of gin that had like the handle to it, like it's a jug, sitting beside that vehicle. Had Florida license plate, a lot of Texas license plates. Yeah. So I'm tired of this. I'm tired of it. Exhausted by it. So that's that.